Hello everyone, my name is Olivia and welcome to an updated bookshelf tour and physical TBR. I try and do a physical TBR tour every single year mostly because I like to see which book continues to stay on my TBR, and I also like to see which books I've added to my TBR that I'm really excited to read in that specific year. So I'm going to give you a very casual bookshelf tour because I've changed a lot of my bookshelves in my room. In my usual fashion, this video is going to be split into two parts. We have my bookshelf tour and then my physical TBR. The bookshelf tour is not going to be in depth. I don't think that showing you every single book that's on my shelf is that entertaining, so I'm going to walk you shelf by shelf to show you how I organize it, the little trinkets that I have on my shelves, and then we're going to move into my physical TBR, which I only have around 35 books on my physical TBR because all of the books on my shelves besides one shelf down here are all read books by me. Because I'm standing in front of it, let's start with my biggest bookshelf. This is from IKEA. I will try and find the link to the shelf because I don't remember the name of it. For size reference, I am 5'6", and you can see how much taller it is than me and how much wider it is than me. I love how you can just see like a little bit of me, but I'm gonna move out of the frame. At the top here, we have my gigantic journal collection, which is very messy. Here we have my graphic novel collection. I don't own too many physical graphic novels. And then we have my Lord of the Rings box set. And if you're wondering where Return of the King is, spoiler alert, it is on my physical TBR because I still have to finish the trilogy, which will have a reading vlog coming very soon. This used to be completely filled, and I recently unhauled a ton of books from my shelves. So now this has a lot of room to grow my romance book collection. And right here is my case for my kalimba, which is a finger piano type of situation that I always forget I own, but this is like the one instrument that I kind of know how to play. I own a Moon Knight Funko Pop that a friend gave to me, and my best friend Sarah got me a crocheted little bead. This is my personal favorite shelf, which is filled with some of my literary fiction that I have collected over the years. I put it in rainbow order because it's very pleasing for me to look at, and then we also have some room here for it to grow as well. We have The Professor. If you watch Puppet History, you know who he is. It's one of my favorite shows on YouTube, which is hosted by Shane and Ryan from BuzzFeed Unsolved. Then we have this really cool notebook that I love, which is the VHS version of Beauty and the Beast, which I used to watch to absolutely death as a kid. So the inside has two different versions of paper, and the front flap is the Beauty and the Beast VHS. This is like one of my prized possessions, and I got it during my last trip to Disney, and I don't ever plan on writing in it. It's simply just a display piece for me. And I'm still trying to find a frame that can hold this art piece that my pen pal Leah gave me, but it is a beautiful art piece from Pride and Prejudice, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a very unique UK size, so I've yet to find a frame that fits it. So right now it just kind of sits on the side of my shelf because I don't want it to fade. And those are the fun things that I have on this shelf. Next is what I like to call a hodgepodge shelf. So we have some literary fiction that I kind of moved onto this shelf because I don't like the idea of an entire shelf being filled with books. So I kind of brought down the literary fiction collection down to here. And then we have some nonfictions that are bleeding over onto this shelf. I have another nonfiction shelf. It's not on this physical bookshelf, so it's kind of starting a new collection over here. Then we have a nonfiction that I fell in love with, which is Vincent and Teo. I display this one outwards because it is secretly hiding all of my skincare. I have a mirror right next to my bookshelf that I put my nightly lotions on and retinol on, so I hide all my skincare here just because it's really easy to access and be able to put it on in the mirror. And then in this jar, I have all of my hair clips. This was previously a candle jar that I really loved, and I just felt very hobbity, so I decided to add it to my bookshelf. And I love reusing candle jars. I think they're so beautiful. And then my dad gifted me a mini Davy Jones chest, and it does actually feature the heart of Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean, which is like the coolest gift someone can possibly give me because I love Pirates of the Caribbean. And behind that, we have a comb from my grandma that I got to keep, and I really love it. It's really precious to me because I remember playing with this often when I was a child. The shelf below features some movies that I recently purchased. I got these at a library sale, and then I was gifted the Before trilogy by my friend Michelle, which I still haven't seen. I definitely do want to make a vlog watching the Before trilogy for the first time, but I have yet to do that because I'm really afraid to start it and have my entire soul crushed. And beside it, I have this really amazing skull that I thrifted at a Goodwill, and it references Hamlet. Then we have some books that I have to add to my physical TBR, which I'll show you a little bit later. Beside that hodgepodge area of my bookshelf is my translated fiction section. It's actually being bookended by a couple of books that I previously had on my dresser that I wanted to move onto my shelf because it was just making my dresser a little bit cluttered. So we have Little Women, we have a notebook that I got from Anthropology, and then we have Rebecca, and then this is my small but mighty translated fiction section. I love translated fiction. Some of these books are some of my favorite books of all time, and I just want to see this collection grow. So if you have any translated book recommendations for me, please put them down below along with the country where the book is originally from. And then I also made an adorable Snoopy clay art that I am obsessed with. It's inspired by a design that I saw on Pinterest, so it's not my original idea, but I think it came out so cute. So now it sleeps in front of my translated fiction section. The shelf below is my historical fiction collection. Well, the start of my historical fiction collection, because this is one of my favorite genres of all time. So I have a lot of historical fictions. I kind of split this up into two different color categories. We have some bluish hues here, and then we have some reds, pinks, and yellows. And behind my Clockwork reader movie planner that my friend Hannah gave me and designed, I have the Diviners series, which I also greatly love, but I just kind of display this journal in the front because I love the movie ticket, and the only little pieces of decor that I have on the shelf here are my little Grogu's that I have on some books, and then one right here. And this book stack is the perfect example to show you how much the sun can bleach books, because this bookshelf is right beside one of my windows. I just kind of let the sun stream into this room, and I didn't realize that my books were actually being bleached. So for this book stack here, this top book, The Red Tent, which is a book that I read in my college for my Women in History course, it previously had a red spine similar to that of The Fountains of Silence, but because the sun kept streaming into this bookshelf for years upon years, it faded into this white color, and you can also see some fading here for Homegoing by Yagayasi, and that is the reason why I added some curtains into my room, because it was bleaching my books and I didn't really notice until this book became completely white on this one side, and I was like, wow, it is so completely faded. It's actually somewhat impressive. So let's move on to the bookshelves that are right above my desk. At the top of this bookshelf, we have all of my classics. On display is this beautiful cover of The Great Gatsby, which is probably my favorite cover of the book. And then we have my Shakespeare collection. And you can also see another instance of my books getting faded because my room gets a lot of sunlight by these Shakespeare plays being a lot paler than King Lear and Hamlet, which are a yellowish color. I'm okay with these fading because I don't really care about these spines as much as the red tent, which became the white tent basically, but this is my Shakespeare collection and I'm very happy with it. I'm a big fan of the Barnes & Noble Shakespeare editions and I've raved about it in a ton of different videos. I think this is like the superior way to read Shakespeare if you're a beginner. I just really prefer these editions over any other. At the top of the left side of this bookshelf, we have a beautiful, gorgeous art print of Will Graham and Hannibal from one of my favorite shows of all time, Hannibal, and that is most definitely one of my favorite pieces of art that I've seen for a TV show. On the left side of this shelf, we have some childhood favorite books like Winnie the Pooh because of Winn-Dixie. Then we also have just like random Arthur Miller plays that kind of don't really fit at the top of this shelf where all the classics are. We have some Cruel Prince books. My Cruel Prince arc is in my closet because I don't want it to fade. And then we have my Hunger Games series. I haven't read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, so that's why it's not featured on the shelf, but do know once I finally read it, it will be added to this section. And these are just some other sci-fi books that I really enjoy. I have some hard drives here and a really cute sleeping kitten that I have on top of it that my grandmother gave me. And then we have some fantasy novels. I'm not the biggest fantasy novel fan, so that's why I only have a couple, and these are some of my absolute favorites. And then beside my fantasy books, I have a York Ghost from New York Ghost Merchants. This is one of my favorite pieces of art that I have in my room. And beside that, I have a really cute keychain coffee from Jellycat, which I also love. And above that, we have a Cuban flag, which is from my grandmother's apartment. The bottom floating shelf, which is right above my computer and my desk, is my nonfiction collection. I have become such a big fan of nonfiction over the years, and I've acquired quite the collection. There's a ton of different trinkets on here, like this Roman Colosseum that my aunt gave me when she visited Rome. I have a Nightmare Before Christmas pin that I love to fiddle with when I'm at my desk. I have a letter opener, and then behind the Colosseum, I also have a postcard of William Shakespeare's birthplace, which is featured in Hamnet. So this is a shelf that I'm very proud of. It kind of encompasses all my different interests in terms of nonfiction. So I really do love this shelf, and I'm really happy it's above my desk so I can look at it every single day, and it really does inspire me. This is a bookshelf that is right beside my closet and kind of overlooks my desk. You don't see this one too often unless I'm filming at a very specific angle, but from the left side we have a couple of historical fictions that don't fit on my historical fiction shelf, and it kind of ends around here. And then from there onwards we have my Latina fiction section. And right above my Latina books, I also have this beautiful crown that one of my best friends gave me, and it is absolutely gorgeous. I wore it for my Loki cosplay that I did over on Instagram, so I just kind of display it right above here on my bookshelf. The next shelf continues my Latina book collection with the bust of the Statue of David. Then we have some mystery / dark academia novels, and I also really love how I have a pin that says "My tummy hurts," and I have it above Thomas Harris's The Red Dragon, which is the first book in the Hannibal Lecter series. I just think the irony is really fun. And then randomly we have Happy Place. Happy Place is my favorite Emily Henry book, and I previously had it with my literary fictions over on my other bookshelf, but because we already know about books fading, I was noticing that Happy Place was starting to fade. And because it's one of my favorite books of all time, I decided to display it on this bookshelf with the cover out, because this bookshelf doesn't receive any light because of the way it is positioned in my room. So I know that Happy Place will never fade. It can be on display. I can enjoy the beautiful cover without the knowledge that it will fade over time. And the last shelf that I have here on this bookshelf displays my Ex Machina A24 screenplay, a dark academia novel that just kind of bled over into this shelf, my 2 copies of The Starless Sea. This is an arc of The Starless Sea, and this is like my most prized possession, beautiful book that I display. I also have this really pretty bee-inspired candle right in front of The Starless Sea because it matches the cover, obviously. And when I recently went to Boston, I stopped at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, and they had a ton of Penguin cloth-bound classics, and I got myself a copy of Frankenstein because I loved the cover the most, and Frankenstein is one of my favorite classics of all time. And right beside it we have my Rivendell Owl Crate Bowl that has some elvish on the side, and it also has this beautiful design on the inside featuring Arwen's necklace and the word Rivendell. Now let's move on to part 2 of this video, which is my physical TBR, which is at the bottom of my biggest bookshelf. It's such an awkward position to try and film in, so I think I'm going to just take these books off of this shelf to show you every single book that's on my TBR. So I have 41 books in my TBR, which means these are 41 books in my entire room that I have not read. Every other book that I have shown you in this video so far, I have read and I have enjoyed and I want to keep in my collection. These are all unread books that I still have to read that I'm very excited about. So let's go through pile number 1. So the first book that I have here is The Twilight Zone. I listened to this initially on audiobook and I really enjoyed the novel and I wanted to add it to my physical collection, but I wanted to reread it to underline, annotate, and really have a conversation in the text because it's a very important novel about authoritarianism in South America, and I want to be able to reread it because I feel like I can get a lot more from the novel than just listening to it on audiobook. So that is a book that I want to reread, but I've already read before. The other novel that I've already read that I want to reread is The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, and this is one of my favorite books of all time. I think I own like 3 different copies of The Shadow of the Wind, and this is a book that I also want to reread, annotate, and just kind of fall back in love with this story because Carlos Ruiz Zafón's series about The Shadow of the Wind is one of my favorite series of all time. The rest of the novels on this TBR I have not read, so now we can go into my actual real TBR. The first book we have here is Sunburn. It's a piece of Irish literature that I am so excited to be able to read this year. Then we have The Blind Assassin by Margaret Atwood and The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot, which I got at my library sale, which happened a couple of weeks ago. I have The Dream Hotel by Lila Lalami, which I'm very excited to read. I also got Brooklyn at a previous library sale that I still haven't read, so I think I got this last year. I have All the Beauty in the World by Patrick Bringley. It follows Patrick's life after the loss of his brother when he works as a security guard in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which is the most Olivia Core nonfiction that I can possibly pick up. Then we have some dystopian literature that I want to read. One includes a reread. I want to read I Who Have Never Known Men. I've heard nothing but good things about this. I need to finally read The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I want to reread Animal Farm by George Orwell because I initially read it in high school and have not reread it since, and I never owned a copy, so I want to also highlight, annotate, and really take my time digesting this novel. And the last dystopian novel that I have on my TBR is Fahrenheit 451, which I cannot wait to read. I can't believe I never read this in high school or in college. I'm finally going to get to it this year, I promise. Another book that I got at my local library sale is The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield, and I've heard nothing but good things about this novel and I cannot wait to dive into it, maybe around autumn time. I have 2 Shakespeare plays that I want to read for the first time ever. We have Antony and Cleopatra, and then we have Titus Andronicus, which I've heard is the bloodiest Shakespeare play of all, and I'm very excited to eventually read it because I'm very curious. Then I have If on a Winter's Night, a Traveler by Italo Calvino, and this is a book that I have heard so many different things about how it's confusing. It's a beautiful piece of literature. I don't know if I'm smart enough to be able to understand this book, so that's why it's been on my TBR for the longest, because I'm genuinely afraid to pick it up. And then the final book in this pile is The Summer Garden by Paulina Simons. This is the 3rd and final novel in the Bronze Horseman trilogy, and if you've been watching my physical TBR videos for years now, you know this has been on my physical TBR for over 5 years. I think I initially got this when I was beginning college and I have not picked it up, and I decided to finally just unhaul it. Yes, I'm unhauling this book because it has been on my TBR for almost 8 years now, and I have yet to feel the desire to pick this up, so I'm finally going to unhaul it. So now my TBR is going down to 40 books, not 41 books. I'm sure people who love even numbers are very pleased right now. I'll be sure to add it to my Pango Bookshop, which is a wonderful app where you can buy used books and sell your books from your bookshelves. It's a great way to give books a new home, and I have a ton of books listed on my Pango Bookshop. My mom found a copy of Second Place by Rachel Cusk in a free little library and said it looked like a book that I would love to read, and she's absolutely right because it's been on my TBR for the longest amount of time on Goodreads, so now I own a copy and can finally read it. One of my friends, Josie, gifted me a copy of Catalina, and I also absolutely love this cover. I found a copy of Girl with Pearl Earring by Tracy Chevalier in my library sale, so I think I got this one last year as well. And I recently got myself a copy of True Grit by Charles Portis for independent Independent Bookstore Day. I'm so happy I found this edition in an independent bookstore on Independent Bookstore Day because this is the edition that I've been looking for months, so I'm really happy to finally be able to read this year. I have 2 romance books that are on my TBR that were gifted to me. So we have A Long Game Amor by Alexis Daria, which was gifted to me by Everand, so thank you so much to them. And then we have Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez, which was gifted to me by Meta because they were having a book club and their first book club pick was this book, so they kindly gifted me a copy, and this is my first Abby Jimenez book. I don't know if this one is everyone's favorite. I've seen a lot of people give it 3 stars, so I don't know if this is the right book to start out with by her, but we'll see. I have a really dark cover of Dante's Inferno. I got this mostly because of Hosier. Will I ever read it and understand it and fully grasp the concept? I don't know. This feels above my intellectual level. But I own a copy, so maybe one day I'll finally buckle down and read this. Let me know if this is like a really difficult piece of literature to dive into, or if it's something that you think I will really enjoy. Then we have Dracula by Bram Stoker. I recently found out that Bram Stoker is Irish. Why did I think that he was Romanian? Because he's writing about a vampire in Romania. He's Irish. Didn't know that. News to me because, again, I never read this in high school, never read it in college. I'm finally going to read it on my own time eventually. The next 3 books are ARCs that I got at a Simon & Schuster event, which I have a short of, which I'll be sure to link down below. So the first one is House of Beth by Carrie Cullen, What Hunger by Catherine Dang, and Odd Body by Rose Keating. These are all like very dark, weird girl lit books that I'm very excited to read around autumn time. I finally bit the bullet and got myself a copy of Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes after reading Sunrise on the Reaping because I just cannot sit with myself knowing that there's a book by Suzanne Collins about the Hunger Games universe that I have not read yet. So I'm eventually going to read this. I don't know why this is her biggest book and it's about snow because I don't want to live in his mind, but I'm sure she has something important to say and I will gladly listen. I have a copy of Blue Sisters by Coco Malors. My pen pal Leah gave me a copy of Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey, and this is a cli-fi book that she really enjoyed and she had an ARC, so she decided to pass it along to me. So thank you so much to Leah for passing this my way. And then I have Beloved by Toni Morrison. This will be my first ever Toni Morrison book and I'm really excited to finally dive into her works. One last pile, let's go. And we finally got to the copy of The Return of the King, which you previously didn't see by my Lord of the Rings trilogy box set, and it's because I still have to read it. I'm going to vlog my entire experience of me reading this for the first time ever and finally finishing the Lord of the Rings series, but people love to say that it's not a series. It was originally all one book that the publishers decided to split up into 3 books. I don't care. This is the final book that I'm very excited to dive into eventually. And we finally have gotten to my nonfiction TBR that are books that I just had to get myself a copy of because I know I want to eventually highlight and annotate. So the first one we have here is Letters to Milena by Kafka. These are letters that he wrote to his translator Milena, who he felt as though she were the only person in the world who truly understood him. I got myself a copy of this after watching the show Chernobyl on HBO because the show was so fantastic and I wanted to learn as much as possible about the Chernobyl disaster, and people said on Reddit that this is the most comprehensive nonfiction that you can pick up. So I'm eventually going to pick this up and learn as much as possible about the disaster. I have 2 art history books by the same man, which is Leonardo and the Last Supper, and Michelangelo and the Pope's Ceiling. I found out about Ross King over on Reddit because whenever I'm interested in a topic, I go onto Reddit to see if there are any nonfiction recommendations that people have for me, and Ross King was recommended to learn about both of these topics, so I'm excited to eventually start an art history nonfiction to see if I enjoy it. I have more writing from Kafka, and it's his diaries. This is a gigantic book. I actually got really interested in Franz Kafka's diaries because they're always quoted and posted about on Tumblr, and he just has some great quotes that I've seen, and he just has a way with words and he understands what it's like to be a young depressed person. So I just feel like Franz Kafka's diaries will be eerily relatable. I also love letter collections, so we have the letters of J.R. Tolkien. I'm hoping to pick this up once I finish the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and then I can dive into his letters that he sent to friends to learn more about the trilogy and his life and his beliefs. And then I have a hefty copy of the Iliad by Homer, which is translated by Emily Wilson, who is a fantastic translator. And I got to hear her speak about her work at an event in New York City, and she just seems like such a knowledgeable person, and her translations are really well loved by the literary community. And that's my entire book collection. I hope you enjoyed getting to see my bookshelves and getting to see my physical TBR as well. If there is a book on my physical TBR that you think I should read as soon as possible, please comment it down below. If there's anything you would want me to link in my description, please comment that down below as well so I can be as helpful as possible. And I really hope you enjoyed this updated bookshelf tour. I had a lot of fun filming it and showing you a little bit more of my book collection and showing you my physical TBR, which has become a yearly tradition of mine. If you want to follow me anywhere else on social media, all my links are down below. And if you stayed this far in the video, leave a book emoji down below so we can see who stays for the longest. If you do, thank you so much. Thank you for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you around very soon. Bye!